I have a dear friend who just had a grandbaby. She was rocking the grandbaby in the rocking chair. She had a hard time getting up out of the rocking chair without grabbing onto the dresser next to the rocking chair. And those are the things that say, oh, wait a minute, that's not good. And, the good news is it's not too late. It's not too late to take control of our health and plant the seeds, plant the foundation for what we want the next 20, 30 years to look like.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. I created this podcast to give you inspiration and let you know you're not alone in feeling stuck in midlife. I also invite you to join the Age Agitators Club for women, where we come together monthly to hatch our plans for making waves as we age. Being part of this community for women will remind you on a regular basis that you're not too old, and it's never too late to do that thing you've been thinking about. You can find more information at latebloomerliving.com/community, and I hope to see you there. Hello, my friend. Welcome. I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Michelle Folan, and she has a podcast that I think is going to be up your alley. It's called Asking for a Friend, which is such a great name, right? She is a health coach. She has so many things that I think we can talk about today that you're going to be able to relate to, because she's got career transitions. She started a podcast at the age of 58. She has become a health coach really only recently. Am I getting that right? Michelle, I'm just going to say thank you so much for being with me today. And I don't want you to struggle.
Yeah. So you got that right. And I guess it would be good to start with where everything kind of started. And it was in the health industry. I was in the pharmaceutical and med device world for many, many years, but that is where my love of the whole body and health and wellness comes into play. And I was very fortunate. I worked for some great companies throughout my career there. Went from sales, training into management. So positions of, increasing responsibility over the years. But the industry really did start changing as more hospitals were gobbling up these private practices. Mm-hmm. The doctors were having less and less time, to spend with the sales reps and building those relationships. And that's what I loved. I loved the education and teaching doctors about new classes of drugs and, talking about studies, and that kind of dissipated with some of the changes in the industry. I decided to try something else, just get out, try something totally new. So I just went as a sales manager to the building products industry, which I know people go, oh yeah. So I did a stint in that too. And that I know seems really kind of odd, but people are the same.
Sales management is really, I mean, that you can go across industries with something like that, right?
You really can. And, I had a team of people that I led, so it was all pretty consistent. This is really where the real life transition starts to unfold, because the company was acquired by another company, and I'd been there for 4.5 years, something like that. And my job was eliminated. And then 6 weeks later, COVID shut everything down.
Right.
Oof. So you're 55 years old, and people who have heard me speak before have heard me say this. You're, midlife female, and you are going into a job search during a global pandemic.
I cringe inside, like to my core, thinking about what that must have felt like.
Well, and it was the uncertainty too.
Yeah.
We didn't know if it was just going to be 2 weeks or months. And I was, I won't say the primary breadwinner, but certainly my husband and I were a team in terms of our finances at that time. So that was a little scary, but kind of where the podcast thing started to, and so it took me a while to get the podcast started because it's not always the easiest thing to get rolling. But
what was okay, so I got to back up because
yeah,
what was the inspiration for even getting the idea to start a podcast? For me, this whole love of podcasts kind of has been there for a long time. Was that the case for you? Were you a listener? Is that what?
No, I never listened to a podcast until the pandemic.
Oh,
I started walking because I couldn't go to the gym anymore because I was a gym rat. I always was at the gym, either working out, doing a spin class, and then that was cut off. I remember my last day in the gym before they closed everything down. There were three of us in the gym on a Saturday morning. I remember taking a picture going, have you ever seen anything like this before? It was, people were getting scared at that point, but I was like, I'm not missing my gym time.
wow.
Yeah. So I started walking and I wanted something to listen to. So I started listening to one podcast in particular, and it was called Failing Forward.
Oh,
And
yes.
she no longer records podcasts, but her name is Sarah Brown. And she it's she takes people who have stumbled along the way, but they always come out on the other side of things really great. And I felt that was so motivating and inspirational. And I kept thinking to myself, I could do this. I could do a podcast, right? I have a theater background. I can talk to people. And so, I started putting the pieces together, and then I got a job. And it put everything on the back burner.
So during COVID, so you did get a job.
Eventually. So it was November, beginning of December, I finally did get a job. But during that time, Yvonne, I will say this. There were lots of interviews. But at my age, I was not going to compromise. Some of these really great companies, exciting products, but I didn't love the person interviewing me. I didn't feel that connection. I walked away from a lot of opportunities because I said,
I freaking love that. I love that, Michelle, because you can feel like you've got to grab that first thing that somebody throws at you when you get older and you're so fearful of ageism and anything else that is anybody ever going to employ me again? I don't know if that was a conversation in your head, but it would have been for me, I think. And good on you for being picky.
Yeah. And
yeah,
the ageism piece did come up because if you looked back at my LinkedIn profile, I had all my jobs listed. And I got some career counseling along the way because I thought, why am I spinning my wheels here? I should have someone kind of guiding me through this because it's a different time. And the first thing she said was, we need to take some of those jobs off your LinkedIn. She said, it's dating you. She made me change my email address because she said, nothing says old like AOL.
True. It's true. Yeah.
I did. I still had an AOL account, but now it's like my junk email. But I still have it. And, I just felt at that time, I'm going, all right, I can compete with the youngsters, but I need to have that opportunity to get in front of the hiring manager. And that they are 20 years younger than I am, that may scare them off. So it was good. It was good advice. And I know some people say, oh no, you should be proud of your age. Well, I am proud of my age. And I'm very comfortable in an interview, but I need the opportunity to have the interview.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And the fact
Yeah.
is that all those keywords and all the things that if you never, it's all being looked at by computers these days,
Yes.
right? So if you are not getting through that filter, you don't get that opportunity to speak to somebody. So, well, so
Exactly.
so you got the new job, and
Mhm.
then that put the podcast idea on hiatus because then you got to get settled into a new job, right? And
Yeah.
what happened? Did the ideas just keep popping up for you the way it did me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like just this nagging thing that wouldn't go away.
Ooh, I
And
have a
I
question. I'm sorry
oh
to
yeah.
interrupt, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
what was the original idea for the podcast? Was it what you're doing now? Was it fully fledged as an idea?
You know, it is a little different. So
Mm-hmm.
I originally was thinking of writing a book.
Uh-huh.
And the book would have been highlighting people who have been through some extraordinary things and how they've come out on the other side. So not as exactly what Sarah Brown has done with failing forward, but doing that, and so looking at health and wellness type of topics,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a breast cancer diagnosis or mental illness or those types of things. So that was the original idea. And then as things got going, I started, it may have been my sister. My sister said, you've got this really rich health background. What if it's really you bringing experts on and asking them questions to get answers like you're asking for a friend?
Which I love. Yes.
Yeah. And that's how things started to build. But you're right. I mean, I getting a brand new job and knowing that I really wanted to put all my efforts into that because I felt so grateful to be part of this cool company. I have great boss, you know, true connection during the interviewing process, not just with him, but with other people with whom I interviewed. And that's when you say, oh, okay, this is why I held off and waited. So as time went on, I finally just said, I got, like you say, pull off the band aid. It's time for me to do this. And I went to him, and his name was Jeff. Well, it's still Jeff. And I said, hey, I want to do this podcast. And I've got this creative itch. And he totally got it because he too is kind of, theater kid, kind of thing. So he got it. And we just didn't talk about it. So
Ah,
that was kind of the deal between us. We wouldn't talk about it, but eventually people found out about it by accident. But I did not talk about it at work unless people asked me about it. I just really wanted to keep the two separate. And I did a really good job at recording, in my free time, not letting that get in the way of doing my job to the best I could.
mm-hmm.
And then when I'll back up here, Yvonne, because during the pandemic, I told you I was walking all the time. I really did start to really focus on my health a little bit more. I came from a very high stress job, traveling all the time, was eating poorly, drinking way too much alcohol because we did a ton of entertaining of
Mm-hmm.
clients and customers. And I really started to reassess things at that point and continued to do that through my last job. And I realized, I shared with you that I'd had a hysterectomy that sent me on my heels.
Did the hysterectomy happen during like post-COVID, like in that
Post
or
COVID. Mm-hmm.
post-COVID? Okay, gotcha. And did it happen before you started the podcast or after?
Before. So this was
Mm.
2021 and had fibroids, and they were starting to get painful and they
Mm-hmm.
were really large. They they wanted to see if they could shrink them by putting me on Lupron. Lupron shuts down all your hormones. They use it a lot in prostate cancer. because it shuts off the testosterone for men, but it shuts down everything. And it's a hard drug to be on, and it's in your system for 3 months and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
And it didn't do anything. So I was able to have the surgery, and they didn't have to do a full blown incision on my stomach and all that. So I was very lucky there. But
yeah,
the aftermath of that is really interesting. And let me just say, in terms of the healthcare community back in 2021, although it is getting better, the way we're treating women with HRT is across the board different. And so I started off on vaginal estrogen and topical testosterone.
Oh, okay.
Which was fine.
Yeah.
That was a good call. But eventually, when I started doing the podcast, I started learning more and more, started advocating more for myself in regard to my health, and asking the questions. Now, wait, why are you putting me on vaginal estrogen versus oral? What about the patch? Should I be on progesterone? So I started being able to ask these questions of my own healthcare providers because I was having these guests on my show.
I cannot tell you. Oh my gosh, I can so relate. I've had I have a great doctor come on, Dr. Lakeisha McMillan. She's an OBGYN with an expertise in perimenopause and the menopause transition. And I have learned just from doing the research, because I'm doing this podcast, I have learned so much about menopause just because I have a podcast. I've learned more. It's crazy, right?
It is crazy.
And so, yeah, wow. Did you end up changing your hormone replacement therapy? Was your cocktail of things changed because
I did.
Yeah.
So her name is Somi Javed. Mm-hmm. She is the founder of Her MD, which she is now opening up locations all over the country. She's on panels with Dr. Mary Claire Haver and, Kelly Casperson and some of the others that are at the forefront of women's health and wellness. She's here in Cincinnati, where I live.
Fantastic.
And so I had her on as a guest and said, I'm making an appointment. But she's so busy now, she doesn't really see patients. But I did see her nurse practitioner, and we got things pretty well figured out. But I added progesterone to the mix because another guest on my podcast said, if you still have breasts, you should have progesterone and estrogen on board. You shouldn't just have estrogen on board.
Yeah.
So, but you make changes based on the information you have and what your doctor is allowing you to do, right? And if you're not getting the answers, what I tell all my friends is, if you're not getting answers, if you're getting poo-pooed because your symptoms are bad, go find someone else that'll listen.
Keep looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that there's so much more information available now than there was even 4 or 5 years ago. It's incredible. And I think if anybody who's listening right now, you may have heard this on the podcast before, but our doctors are not being trained at all about menopause. They don't know just about anything. Even the OBGYNs might get a slight nod, like a little segment of, okay, this is menopause and the ovaries, stop working and blah, blah. And boom, the system shuts down. She's done. And that's all they get.
Yeah.
Right? Have you found this to be true too?
Yeah. And most of the doctors that, I have on the show have gone out and gotten their own additional training and, certifications. So that's what you want to look for. I think it's the American Menopause Society has a list of doctors who are trained to treat menopause. So just FYI. And,
Yes.
but just, you don't have to suffer. And, and it's hard. The whole process is hard on your body because not only are your hormones, you know, dying, but, your body starts changing. We start to gain that weight in our middle, and you can exercise all you want. And that was the whole paradigm shift for me, was all that cardio, all those spin classes that I was doing, the restrictive diets. Well, that was almost having the opposite effect for me. And that's kind of where I started to really hone in on getting myself healthy. Was, I said, what I did 2, 3, 4 years ago is no longer working for my changing body.
Yeah. Yeah. The excess cardio actually drives up cortisol levels, right?
Yeah, it does. It doesn't do what it did for us in our 30s. I mean, I think those people still have probably high cortisol, but for us, our managing stress is so important. Getting adequate sleep and meditation and getting sunshine early in the morning. There's so many wonderful things that we can do to help, but then there's just some things that we just our bodies are just got a mind of their own.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break here so I can tell you about an awesome resource that I think you're going to love. Here's the thing. We are always works in progress. Do you find yourself wondering, what do I want to be when I grow up? If so, then I think you're going to want to subscribe to We're All Getting Older, which is a weekly newsletter written by Lou Blazer that's all about continuing to grow and get better in the second half of our lives. We're All Getting Older is a sponsor for this podcast, and I'll tell you, I get so much benefit from reading Lou's newsletter every week, and I think you will too. She writes the newsletter for midlifers who believe in getting better as we get older and making the most of life's second half. So if you want to subscribe to that, it is on Substack, and you can easily find a link to subscribe at loublazer.com. That's LOUBLASER.com. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
So that's where kind of my mission came in. I said, I'm gaining weight and I don't feel great. I'm tired all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just started doing my research. And again, you and I are both on social media all the time. We see the plethora of health and wellness companies out there. I wanted to find something for myself that I really felt spoke to midlife women. And I stumbled on the Faster Way. Have you heard of the Faster Way?
Only because of you. And
Okay.
I will say, as you said, we spend a lot of time on social media, and especially in the beginning, it can be really overwhelming to get,
Yeah.
a lot of ads about, because let's face it, on Instagram and Facebook, they're putting, sponsored ads in front of you, and it's hard to know what's legit, what really works.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know how to trust what you're seeing that's being thrown and put in front of you? And that takes a lot of sorting through. And, I do, I never take anything at first
No,
glance. I'll just say
no.
that. I get in and dig and make sure that this is a legit source. But tell me about this, because all I know of it is through you.
Well, and to your point, this is important. I've had other health and wellness professionals, that are fitness and, health professionals on my podcast. And I started to hear a common theme is that midlife women need to treat their bodies differently. We don't need to do cardio. We've got to be lifting weights. Macro-based nutrition, lots of protein to keep our muscles, because we're losing, 1 to 2 to 3% of our muscle every year. We have to have carbohydrate. You need carbohydrate to build muscles. I know. What?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I feel like celebrating. What? I can have carbs. Tell me more.
Carbohydrates, you need them for energy to get through a workout. You need them to build muscle. It's amazing. And by the way, you need fat too. Good fats.
Yeah,
and so So I was hearing these common themes, and I saw Faster Way, and I said, I'm signing up. So this time last year, I got a coach, and I am the person that is hard pressed to ask someone for help.
I can relate.
For me to ask someone for help, I mean, just getting the career coach back during COVID was like monumental move for me. And it was getting a health coach was the best thing I ever did. And it worked, because
tell me what that looked like for you. Like, why did it make such a big difference? Do you have anything anecdotal or a particular thing to point out?
Well, they have an app which really keeps you accountable, because you are tracking your macros throughout the day.
Okay, so I have to be honest with you. I hear macros, I hear tracking, and instantly I go, no, not gonna do it.
Yeah, I know. But I still today, I'm pretty good at knowing what my macros are, just because I did track them. But I will every once in a while.
Can you even explain what macros are for anybody who does not know what a macro is? And I'm seriously, I've heard the term a bajillion times, and I seriously don't really know what they are.
It's a great question. So they're your macronutrients. So carbohydrate, fat, and protein.
Okay.
Micronutrients are the things you get, in fruits and vegetables, and your amino acids, and those types of things. So it's really
like a vitamin A or a vitamin D or a calcium, that's a micronutrient.
The macronutrients are the big building blocks.
So that's like, think food pyramid designations of protein, carb, fat, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and that's a really good question. But you'd be really surprised, for a woman who is used to only eating 900 or 1,200 calories a day. You join Faster Way, and all of a sudden you're eating 1,500, 1,600, or 1,700 calories a day. You're going, oh my God, right? But you have to, in order to burn fat, you've got to feed yourself. Because if you go into too much of a calorie deficit, you're shutting your metabolism down. But we do carb cycling. So with the carb cycling, so we have built-in workouts every day on the app, they're amazing, but they're only a half hour. So you're not having to exercise for an hour every day. But the nutrition for the day, your recommended macro goals are tailored to the day. So say Wednesday is a bit like today. It's a regular macro day because it's very heavy in weightlifting on Wednesday. So the carb cycling allows your body to tailor your macros to your activity for the day. It's fascinating.
Wow.
And it works.
Wow.
You gotta trust me on this. Yeah. Now, walking is a very important component as well, because you want that thermogenesis from doing non-exercise type.
Well, okay, what is thermogenesis?
Okay, so that would be fat burn and calorie burn from doing things like walking, cleaning your house, working in the garden, anything like that.
I mopped my floor this morning. That counts,
that
right?
Counts. That's
all right.
It's non-exercise aerobic thermogenesis.
Ah, okay. I like being able to get points and credit for
Yeah. Well, and that all it's really about keeping your body moving.
Yeah.
It's movement, right?
Mhm.
And the movement helps with the joint pain. It gets that synovial fluid in the knees and everything else flowing. So movement is great for a lot of things.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
That's why I work out, because I want to be able to go to the bathroom when I'm in my 90s by myself.
Oh,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Well, and and let me tell you the other reason why I got the coaching, and this has been such a mission of mine.
Hmm.
My mom, when she was almost 86, fell in her kitchen. She didn't hurt herself, but she absolutely could not get herself up.
Wow.
Excuse me. And
That's so scary, isn't it?
she's very proud woman. She sat there on the floor. At, let me just tell you, she was able to make herself breakfast and even call her doctor to cancel her 10 o'clock appointment. But she did not call my brother or me to let us know that she could not get up. So she was there for 6 hours before she finally did call me. And
Holy cannoli.
yeah, and so I decided that's not going to be my story. And I have a dear friend who just had a grandbaby. She was rocking the grandbaby in the rocking chair. She had a hard time getting up out of the rocking chair without grabbing onto the dresser next to the rocking chair.
Mm.
And those are the things that say, oh, wait a minute, that's not good. And, you know, the good news is it's not too late. It's not too late to take control of our health and plant the seeds, plant the foundation for what we want the next 20, 30 years to look like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to say it again. It is never too late. I'm getting really close to the mic right now. It is never too late. I fill my speaking of social media again, I fill my Instagram with those kinds of inspirational stories.
Mm-hmm.
Train with Joan. If you want inspiration first that shows you that it is never too late. She started in her 70s.
Yep.
She is doing heavy lifting and she's unrecognizable from what she was. And she was having health issues, and her daughter happens to have the know-how to coach her. And so
Yep.
that brings us back to coaching, right? I probably frankly need to get a coach to get me doing the heavy lifting, because it's just, I keep saying I'm going to do this and it's just not happening. It's just
Well,
not
and
happening.
I have friends that are really athletic and they play pickleball and they're doing all these things, but they're like, oh, I tried to do some exercises the other day with something bigger than an 8 pound weight and it was hard. And I said, well, you gotta start somewhere. Start with the 8 pound. And I said,
Yeah.
once you think you can go all day long with the 8 pounds, you gotta go to the 10 pound. But I did have Joan McDonald as a guest on my podcast.
Did you?
I
Fantastic. Oh, I got to
did.
go listen to that episode. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
she's such a neat, just really humble woman, and she's has over 2 million followers, I think,
Yeah.
on Instagram. She's, you know, all because her daughter was like, all right, we gotta fix this because
Uh,
yeah, you're looking at major health issues.
right. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
take medicine? Because I feel like when you start taking pills, they lead to other pills half the
Mm-hmm.
time, because you've got to manage whatever the side effects are from that one pill, right? And the more I feel like we've got a lot of choice in the matter, and sometimes we don't. I'm going to say that too.
Oh, right. No.
Sometimes things happen that are absolutely out of our control, and it is not a failure to have to go the medicine route. And I just want to say that too. But if we can have some control over that, I think I think just knowing that can,
Yeah.
you know,
We can
can help.
we can do a lot with food and exercise. And I'm not one of these people like food is medicine. That's not my thing. but it's really your food choices, cutting down on refined sugars. The American Heart Association says women should not get more than 25 grams of added sugar in their food. Now, that's not fruit, right? It's the latte that you get at Starbucks. It's the soda. It's in your yogurt that's got fruit in it, right? That's the added sugar. Those are the things that we can control that can really make a huge difference.
I'll speak personally on this one. I have been a bit of a sugar hound most of my life. I used to have a bowl of cereal before bed every night. And oh my goodness, that was like the hardest habit in the world to break, can I just tell you? But I am so glad I did. And I have really pulled back on sugar in my diet in so many ways. Not 100%. I'm just going to say I have cookies, I have cakes, I have treats. But there are days where, I I have looked at things like yogurt, all the sneaky things
Oh
where
yeah.
you get the sneaky, if you can look at it. And my inflammation, like just the pain in my body is less than it was
Yep.
because I watch out for, and when I don't watch out for it, it starts to creep back into my diet. I can
Mm-hmm.
feel it,
Yeah, you
you know?
can. You
Yeah.
absolutely can. And I've had the same experience, Yvonne. The other component is the fasting component. And I'm not saying fasting for 24 hours or anything like that, but giving your body a break, not eating after dinner,
Mm-hmm.
giving your body that break till the next morning for, because all day long we're eating. So our blood sugar's going up, going down, insulin's going up, going down. If you can just give your body that break after dinner, give your body 12 hours of nothing. And that's can
It
be,
makes a big difference.
yeah.
And even some days I don't quite make it the 12 hours, but I have tried to move my dinner times up as early as I can get them. And then I stop eating. If I am going to
Mhm.
have like a little treat, maybe like a little dark chocolate after
Oh,
dinner,
yeah.
a little something. And I just make sure, okay, if I'm going to have the dessert, it's got to be like right after dinner. And then I don't eat until the morning. And sometimes I make the 12 hours and sometimes I don't, depending on what the schedule is for the day. And I try not to get too stressed out about whether or not
Yeah.
I've gone 12 hours. It's because I feel like the stress is its own problem when we worry too much about these things. But I guess my point is that just quitting eating earlier in the day, which I never thought I would do ever in a
Yeah.
million years, has I sleep better. I just feel better.
Yeah.
It's night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a huge change in your behavior. The the one thing that I will say too, and this is something we learned with the faster way, is that during the day, if you are getting adequate carbohydrate, fats, and protein in your diet throughout the day, it does reduce sugar cravings. So that's the other thing is the sugar cravings coming
Mm.
from something. And oftentimes it's just because you're hungry, and you need to eat foods that are satiating, that keep that sugar craving at bay.
Oh my goodness. So this is good news. I like that. I like that news. Oh my goodness.
Yay.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to look into it further. I'm looking at the time and going, how did this happen? Oh my gosh. I could talk to you all day because we come at this from such a similar space. We have the opportunity to take the power now, especially if you are listening and if you're in midlife, such a sweet spot for making changes now that are going to serve you when you're in your 70s and 80s and 90s. There are so many people who have shown that you can get control of these things. Now you have started actually coaching people,
I
right?
have clients now.
That's
It's
awesome.
it's really fun. And that was, in my previous roles in management, the coaching piece was the really fun piece for me. And
Hmm.
now I get to tie my love of coaching and my love of health and wellness together. And then the podcast still is the health and wellness podcast, asking for a friend. And so it's a great marriage. it just seemed to make sense. I resigned from my job.
Mm-hmm.
I left corporate America. I resigned, I guess it was at the end of February.
Wow. I'm just going to say
Thank
congratulations. And
you.
I'm so excited for you. You're betting on yourself right now. I love
It's
that.
freaking scary though. It's really
Yes.
scary.
Yes.
But I love what I'm doing. And just to be my own boss for a while is very gratifying. And here's the thing. Change is hard, but women our age, we've got so much experience. We've brought kids into the world. We've done corporate America. We've worked.
Amen.
We've
Mm-hmm.
this life experience that we have, it creates this, I don't know. I don't want to say it's confidence so much as that it's guts, I guess, a little bit of fearlessness to go after something. And to me, that's such a gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a
You know?
well to draw from. We
Yeah.
have a full well of experience. And don't, I think too often people discount their own experience. Oh, I'm just a mom, or oh, I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
this, or I'm just that. And I'm just going to generalize right now and say that people tend to discount what comes easy to them
Yeah.
and think it's just, well, that just doesn't count because that's easy. But it's not
Yeah.
true. That's hard won skill that you're employing in your life that is not easy for somebody else. Somebody
Right.
else is looking at you going, oh my gosh, she's amazing.
And I
You
was on
know?
another podcast recently and I talked about that a little bit. It was a career podcast. I said, if you have been that career mom and you want to get out and start your own thing, or you want to, you know, dip your toe in the business world, your experience as a mom, just a mom, and I have air quotes going,
Mm-hmm.
carries with it some amazing experiences. You're organized. You've probably been a chairman of this, a president of that. Those are people that I want working on my team. So don't underestimate the value of those gifts that you bring to the table.
Amen. I love it. How can people find you for both the podcast and your coaching services?
All right. So on Facebook and Instagram, it's asking for a friend pod. So it's underscore pod on Instagram. You can find the podcast anywhere, and it's on all the different platforms. For the coaching business, you can really reach out to me by email. I'll give you that email, if put it in the show notes if you'd like, or you can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook. You can direct message me there, and I can
Perfect.
just send you more information, set up a 15-20 minute call to run you through the program to see if we'd be a good match to work together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I will have all the links, all the things, all the information for you in the show notes. If you're driving right now, don't worry, I got you covered. And we'll get you connected with Michelle so you can get a coach. Man, we all need that.
Yes,
That
we
is
do.
what, I don't know about you, but as one thing that I have learned from so many of the guests on my podcast is that where people have really gained traction in making change is by having a coach or a community
Yeah.
that they could tap into to ask for help. Because I, like you, I will say, am somebody who struggles to ask for help, and I'm getting better at it.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's because we're getting older.
that's right. That's right. Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Yvonne. It was wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Well, there you have it. I hope you found this conversation with Michelle Folan as inspiring and informative as I did. I mean, I I feel like I think I know what macros are now. Very cool. And who knew you could have carbohydrates? I'm very excited about that, I have to say. I think my main takeaway from this is to remember again that it's never too late to take control of your health and wellness, that small, consistent changes can lead to big improvements in your overall well-being, and the benefits of getting coaching, getting help, asking for help, or partnering up with a buddy or a friend to get us going. Community, those things are so powerful for helping us stay on target. If you want to learn more about Michelle's coaching services or listen to her podcast, which is, again, Asking for a Friend, just be sure to go to the show notes for all the links and the information. That'll be at latebloomerliving.com/podcast, and you can look for episode 194. You can connect with her on Instagram and Facebook. I'll have all the things for you. And hey, if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, follow, rate, leave a review, all those things. They help to, the algorithm thingies to do their thing to get the podcast in front of other people. So anyway, if you have any questions, topics that you'd like me to cover, guests that you'd love to hear from, feel free to reach out to me on social media or via email. That's latebloomerliving@gmail.com. I really do love hearing from you. So please reach out. Until next time, I hope you have a great week. Stay safe and well. Talk soon.